Someone took the lyrics to that Carl Douglas song very literally. This week we check out the Kinkou Order's Enforcer and the cute little lightning hamster, Kennen, Heart of the Tempest. Welcome to Runeterra Tourist. My name is Patrick. I don't know anything about these people yet, so let's learn about them together. Happy Vendetta release day to all who celebrate. I hope you've been enjoying any pre-Rift events you've been going to. I've attended about 4 by the time this video releases, and I've had a great experience at them, met some excellent people around the community, and I had this one experience where I went 0-3 after nearly going 3-0 literally the day before, so I was going to reconstruct that deck and then build a new one with this extra pre-Rift kit that I got, and then I forgot to hit record. Man, what? So maybe next time. But thanks to everybody who's been watching and engaging with the content and helping to spread the word. So continue to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, hype if you're watching on mobile, because all of that helps to spread the word about this channel, and I greatly appreciate it. Kennen was created in April of 2010, so he's one of the original characters of League of Legends, and he's the longest standing Kinkou in universe. In League of Legends, he's all about stacking the magic damage from range, and in Riftbound, he's Chaos and Order domains, the first of these rival pairings that we've seen released in Vendetta. He's also one of the most hyped legends coming into the set right now, giving you rewards for playing stuff not in hand, so also conveniently timed with the release of the flow mechanic. Very interesting. But how will he fare in this meta? Is he going to be just another LeBlanc that kind of falls flat competitively? Before we get into all of that, let's get into the lore first and then see how he stacks up. Kennen is a yordle from Bandle City, a realm of constant transformation and vibrant chaos, and most yordles thrive in there. But not Kennen. He felt a dissonance in it, and he went looking for harmony and balance instead. And so he left the spirit realm several millennia ago looking for some kind of peace, and he ended up crossing into the material world, drawn by this curiosity. Eventually, he found what he was looking for in the First Lands, this place that would later become Ionia. And so he was fascinated by their pursuit of balance and tranquility despite all of the stuff that they had gone through, from just coming out of a war and having to rebuild their homeland. So he would leave Bandle City behind and embrace the mortal realm and its inhabitants. Kennen came across the Kinkou, and he noticed that they had 2 pillars, this Eye of Twilight, who is more about introspection and watching, observing, and the Fist of Shadow, who is warlike and more of a man of action. And so Kennen recognized there was this gap between them and proposed himself as a bridge, or an arbiter of sorts. He became the first and only Heart of the Tempest, completing the triumvirate to maintain equilibrium. His charge was called Coursing the Sun, or tirelessly conveying the justice of the Kinkou, and it had 2 halves. The first one is he's the Order's voice. He noticed that the Kinkou had drifted from the people that they judged. The verdicts were delivered swiftly, mysteriously, no appeal, and their faces shrouded with these masks. But he deliberately removed his mask in some effort of, positive PR. And so he noticed that this had a better way to connect with the people who were affected by these rulings. And the second half, and noted in his official biography, is that he addressed these challenges to the Kinkou's judgments, and not always with words, so to speak. Effectively, he was their enforcer. Given his advanced age that's estimated to be at least 9,996 years old, give or take a decade or two, I would suppose. Never ask a yordle their age. He's been involved in several conflicts. The Great Darken War, where he fought alongside the Eye of Twilight Benan and the Fist of Shadow Lao. He was involved in a conflict involved in the Spirit Blossom Festival alongside Xin Zhao and Yunara to defeat a demonkin, and this little thing you may not have heard of called the Noxian invasion. When Noxus invaded the First Lands, Kennen initially opposed joining the resistance, and then Zed's coup came, where the Kinkou were slaughtered, Kusho was killed, and then his son Shen inherited a title that he wasn't built nor ready for. In the aftermath, Kennen is the one who held the order together while Shen struggled to lead and offered his counsel to this new Eye of Twilight. He urged Maine to look at her own daughter as a successor, a colleague whom he had been training since childhood. However, he couldn't stop her from leaving. Eventually, Akali would walk away from the Kinkou, frustrated that the Order would refuse to act against Ionia's enemies. Now, funnily enough, on Kennen's universe page on Riot's official website, his color story is left out. And the one that appears there is actually Akali's. So here it is, and it's actually a quick story. During the Noxian invasion, Kennen receives this urgent plea for help from these acolytes of the Temple of Raishai on the southern coast of Jun, whose temple had been corrupted by this unknown malevolent force. And given the fracturing within the Kinkou, this sect was completely devoted to the cause of staying out of the war as commanded. As he arrives at the temple, Kennen discovers that the corruption lies not within the physical structure, but within the acolytes themselves. They become these vessels for dark entities fueled by their anguish and despair over the Kinkou's past decisions to not intervene during times of conflict. And so, despite their loyalty to the Order, these unresolved emotions have allowed themselves to be exposed to these malevolent forces. Kennen confronts the acolytes, gently revealing the truth of their condition and offering them a path to healing by releasing them from the Kinkou duties, basically giving everyone the pink slip. However, some of the acolytes resist, seeing this as a dishonorable act and challenging Kennen. And I mean, yeah, I get it. Like, you think you're just doing your job as normal and then you get abruptly fired by some consultant? Using his lightning powers, Kennen incapacitates those who resist. He doesn't kill them, he just gives them an out so that they have a chance to find peace elsewhere. Just do it somewhere else. The former acolytes eventually leave, and Kennen reflects on this bittersweet nature of their departure, knowing that it would be necessary for their own good and greater harmony of the world. And Kennen is determined to carry their story forward, stretching the truth just a little bit by saying that they fought with honor, wanting to remain part of the Order, but leaving on their own terms. So that's all fine and good, except where did the lightning come in? None of the current updated lore discusses it. You actually have to dig back into his old lore before it got updated in tandem with the release of issue 5 of the Zed comic, which, interestingly enough, Kennen does not appear in at all. Strange. His original lore says how Kennen was born in Bandle City and, quote, "It was said that his first living moments he bolted first from the womb and second from the midwife who delivered him." Bolted from the womb? Yikes. His parents figured he'd outgrow his boundless energy, but as he matured, his energy and unnerving speed found no limits. Despite his astonishing gifts, he still remained relatively unnoticed, or at least uncaught, since he was quite the prankster. Until, on a dare, he ran up the great outer wall of the Placidium. And that put Kennen on the map for the Kinkou, who then recruited him to be their enforcer, and then he founded the position of the Heart of the Tempest, working alongside Akali and Shen to enforce the balance of the First Lands. What's consistent across all of these versions is his speed, this storm that he can generate, and the yordle who chose order over chaos. Hey, that's the two domains that he is in Riftbound. Fancy that. And then he spent centuries enforcing that choice, sometimes with words, sometimes with action. But I mentioned Order and Chaos, which feels like a perfect transition to get into the cards and see if they have something for us. So in League of Legends, a lot is built around the Mark of the Storm. He accumulates marks through repeated fast hits and then stuns the enemy on the third stack. He's got numerous range attacks, flinging shurikens that are oversized by yordle standards all over the place. And his ultimate, Slicing Maelstrom, is a storm that repeatedly strikes over time, mass marks, mass stuns. In Legends of Runeterra, he has Quick Attack, naturally, and the same accumulate and trigger identity, just expressed through creating these Mark of the Storm cards in hand that can stun an enemy unit. So how did Riot do in translating all of this to Riftbound, if at all? Starting with the legend card Kennen, Heart of the Tempest, you can see the Chaos and Order domains, and when you play a card from anywhere other than your hand, empower me. Then, as an action, you disempower me and exhaust this card to give a unit Assault 2 this turn, which is +2 might while it's an attacker. So I guess the empower disempower loop kind of feels like Mark of the Storm form a little bit. You build the charge and then discharge it into a strike, and the Assault 2 is kind of like that bonus magic, I guess. Action speed means that it fires during showdowns, and so this is the combat math that opponents are going to have to account for when holding battlefields, but it has Assault 2, so that means it's only really useful on your attacks. The trigger is the whole deck building puzzle though. Anywhere other than your hand covers the champ zone, hidden cards, flow plays, and effects that will play cards from the trash like Rasa, or off the top of your deck like Nocturne, Fizz playing spells from trash when it enters the battlefield, Baited Hook, Last Rites. So many options. And keep in mind, it's card, not token, so even though Order is kind of the token domain of sorts, that really doesn't have any synergy with Kennen's abilities. But it's at least repeatable across the whole game, so every non-hand play will re-empower him. His signature spell, Lightning Rush, is wild. It's 1 energy cost, and you can look at the top 3 cards of your main deck. You may choose a card from among them and draw it, put the rest in your trash, and it has Flow 2 with 1 power cost as well. You may play this from your trash for its flow cost, then banish it. So, named after his E in League of Legends, Lightning Rush is the dash where he becomes lightning and passes through things, marking enemies along the way. And so here he passes through the deck, I guess. Burning cards potentially stocks the trash with cards that have the flow keyword, and flow plays re-empowers the legend ability, and his signature spell conveniently has the flow keyword. This card has the community in a frenzy, calling it pushed. I mean, 1 energy is a very low bar to clear. Have they not learned from Called Shot? What? But whether it's actually good is really going to be dependent on whether this legend actually performs well. Also, bear in mind that Defy checks the card's printed cost, not what you actually paid, so you could pay a very, very hefty flow cost, and it can be defied if its printed cost is still within range, so keep that in mind. Next, we have the rare champion unit out of Order. It's Kennen, Keeper of Balance, 3 energy costs for a 2 might unit, has the hidden keyword, which you can hide for a power to react later for 0 energy cost, and when you play me or I attack, you may pay 2 energy to stun a unit, meaning it doesn't deal damage in combat this turn, and while there's a stunned enemy unit here, I have +2 might. Stun is the Mark of the Storm's payoff directly. In League of Legends, 3 marks means a stun, so this card has that outcome as a card ability, and the +2 might is a pretty nice bonus. The total energy investment adds up across turns, and so this being 2 might also means it's very gustable and very deal 2 damage to a unit hearable, though Kennen being purple has access to Gust and Starcrossed himself. Compare that to Vi Peacekeeper, which has a large upfront cost, no reoccurring cost, much more might, and instead of hidden it has ambush. So slight versatility in this card in that it can stun when played, whereas Vi stuns on attack only, and this could be played from hidden, so that means it could be played on defense. Holding him at a battlefield means you're going to need to leave 2 runes up for the stun, but having purple as your other domain, you're already going to probably do that anyway, just to bluff your opponent at the very least. Playing from hidden obviously empowers the legend ability, but you probably don't want to play this from the champion zone just because that removes an option to trigger Kennen's legend ability later, and you'd probably rather just play it from hidden. Finally, the epic champion unit out of Chaos, Kennen, Storm of Shuriken. It is a 3 energy, 1 chaos power costed unit with 4 might, and when you play me, burn 2, which means put the top 2 cards of your main deck into your trash, and when I conquer, give a spell in your trash flow equal to its cost this turn. Burn 2 stocks the trash, although note it says put, not look, so sorry Nocturne. But the Conquer trigger turns any spell into a flow play, which means it triggers the Legend's Empower requirement. Giving flow to a spell that never had it is wild. So if you burn over a normal spell, this can resurrect it from the trash like a Raccoon Messiah. Flow banishes the card, so if you're playing Fizz in this deck, and we know you are, flow responsibly. Conquering with 4 might gets way more difficult in later turns, and the chaos power cost complicates things on whether you want this in your champion zone. That said, I still think that you want a 1-of here and more copies of the rare order unit in the deck. So overall, how does Kennen stack up? Kennen is an interesting case given that he's one of the OGs from League of Legends. I mean, originally he was this hyperactive ninja that inserted himself into the Kinkou Order, but his backstory rework makes him a little bit more conservative and reluctant to go into battle when Noxus invades. It's like Yoda from the prequels versus Yoda from the original series. Between Shen, Akali, and Kennen, it makes me wonder if this is an area that's been underexplored. Similarly, with the neutrality of the Kinkou and what that does to Zed and Shen, as well as Akali and Kennen, where the story eventually jumps to the Kinkou fighting and defeating Noxus, it's never really explained how we got to that point and more of the dynamics between the four of them. With the Kinkou, it's like Riot was obsessed with making them a triumvirate, but unable to figure out what balance looked like amongst them. Initially, Kennen was more like Akali, ready to spring into action, being the enforcer of the Kinkou, but then after the comics and the rework, they made him more like Shen, reluctant to get involved in conflicts and maintaining peace and stability. It's also interesting to note that Kennen was training Akali initially, but then she became Shen's protege in the comics, which I can kind of see it in the latter, given that he's taking on Shen and being his mentor while he's this young Eye of Twilight and still learning the ropes. The current bio of Kennen frames him as this ancient, diplomatic, institutional entity, comfortable being the Order's enforcer, and to me that makes a little more sense given that yordles are these immortal creatures with all the time in the world and they've seen it all, so what's the rush? It's just funny to be all what's the rush when your abilities involve lightning and quick strikes. Fortunately for the card game version, it plays out a little bit more coherently. In Riftbound, he's Chaos and Order as the domains, purple and yellow, and the engine is burn and trash filling effects that stock up the resources that he's going to utilize, flow and hidden cards, triggering the legends and power requirements, and then the discharge of this Assault 2 at action speed, something that the opponent's always going to have to keep in the back of their mind when this legend is empowered. So it's kind of an aggro deck, but thanks to the Order domain, it also dabbles in control a little bit, and purple's card selection, capabilities, and draw to find the pieces, yellow's control paired with purple's bounce effects to manage the board, makes this for a very interesting, unique build. The catch is there's not a lot tying it to the League of Legends or Legends of Runeterra outside of the yellow rare, which allows you to stun an enemy unit. Other than that, there's not a lot of similarities here. But despite the fact that there's no direct ties to his League of Legends or Legend of Runeterra abilities, I kind of like what they did here with him. And in Constructed, I kind of think Kennen's going to be a menace. Now, I mean, I totally understand that I was not the only one who called Diana in Unleashed, and I'm very aware that this isn't breaking news by me saying that, but I'm kind of trusting my instincts here a little bit. With all of the hype and having not seen it in play yet, there's always the chance of having this LeBlanc pretender risk, right? I mean, this is a legend that received a lot of attention by the internet coming into Unleashed, only to barely produce those kind of results in best of 3. I know it's shocking that the internet would overreact to something and got it wrong. For Kennen, it'll all come down to whether the flow package actually delivers and which build prevails, with plans of Last Rites and Baited Hook and Rasa all currently being floated as of recording. And whether Riot continues to support flow in its design space, unlike what it did with XP as of now, it will really determine Kennen's success. But he's got access to purple and yellow, so I think he'll be just fine. So to all the Kennen mains, what drew you to him in the first place? And to everyone building Kennen and Riftbound, is the hype real, or are we getting another LeBlanc? Let me know in the comments below. New episodes drop weekly, and I finally finished the book, so next week we're going to take a look at Ambessa. So like and subscribe if that sounds like your sort of thing, and until next time, thanks for watching.